Welcome to Bible Over Brews, deep thoughts fermented over time and text. I'm coming at you, Aaron Crew Juice for Verk, and I've got Gumby.
Hey, what's going on?
I've got Mr. Michael O'Neill.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
I have to say, I'm rather excited about tonight's show. It was a pleasure having you on the first time. And
how long ago was that?
I think it was about a year ago. Right? I think it was about a year ago.
Seems so much longer than that.
Yeah. I think during this pandemic, you just add a couple years to any kind of calculation of years. But yeah, it seems like it's been a while.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like my waistline. Just add a couple.
We'll be trying out Coach Dunkel, and this is from the Schnitz Brewery over in Parma, Ohio. It's we made our Kolsch with roasted malts and crafted this easy and smooth drinking dark ale. It's an ABV of 5.25. Looking forward to this. This is a local. Right from the start. Wow, not much head at all.
It's got to be one of the coolest looking breweries we have here.
Yeah, it's from the
German flair.
Yeah, the Schnitzel House was originally the restaurant, and now they've opened up a brewery across the street from it. So, but right in the top, it's a very thin head. Not a whole lot of nose, actually. Very dark. Ooh, but incredibly smooth. It definitely is a Kolsch, but it's not a harsh bite. It's quite light. It's smooth, almost like a.
Wow.
Almost like a light, chocolatey overtone.
Yeah.
Very light.
It tastes nothing like it smells.
No. It smells a bit darker.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
That is fantastic. Mr. Michael O'Neill. I will say, right from the get-go, after you told me that you brought these shows out, because honestly, I apologize. I have not kept up to date over the last year because I've been so busy with my daytime job and then launching my own personal businesses on the side. As soon as you told me that, I actually went on to WTN and I bought the whole season of They May Be Saints and Explore.
Well, thank you for that big donation to EWTN. That's a lot of episodes you bought.
But I've already started watching them. Really awesome. We'll dip into each one of those because I really think that we need to explore all of your endeavors. They're really cool. Like really, really cool.
Thanks. I appreciate you checking them out. Yeah, I'm. If you can't tell, I'm having a blast. It's a lot of fun.
It's fantastic. Let's start with They May Be Saints. It's kind of a fun thing because I've never seen anybody explore anything like this before. You know, you hear about it here and there in the Catholic world. Not really anywhere outside of that either. But it's interesting that you're chronicling all the people who are on their way to sainthood. Can you tell us a little bit about this project because it's kind of unique?
Yeah, it's great. I really do like it. And the title is "They Might Be Saints." It's an offshoot of the band They Might Be Giants, as you might guess by that name. So, and there's a book that corresponds to the television series, and the concept behind the series is Americans on the Path to Sainthood and the Search for Canonization Miracles. So it's this combination. Everybody likes a good saint story. Everybody likes a good miracle story. So you mix those two together and you get this show. And so, I think that we get the sort of sense of American pride or excitement when somebody from our own soil rises up and becomes, recognized as a saint in the Catholic Church. And we all know people who study this stuff and they know it takes a long time, right? So from death to sainthood can be hundreds of years sometimes. So I think it's kind of exciting to see that there are some Americans on the path to sainthood. And if you read the book, They Might Be Saints, it's a little bit of like an American history lesson. You get some insight into all these saints over the ages of America. So it's a fun project.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, seriously. And just because a lot of our audience is evangelical, we have both Catholic, evangelical, and even agnostic listeners, as well as a small Islamic crowd. I don't think most of them are familiar with what it takes to get to sainthood. Can you define how a person goes from being just a believer and then all the way up to the process of sainthood?
Absolutely. And for people who want more detail, in my book, They Might Be Saints, I dedicate a whole chapter to this path to sainthood and also the search for miracles. And every show we try to give a little hint about how the process works, but the shows are short. They're 30 minutes, so we only get into it a little bit. But the first and foremost comment is that all of us might be saints, right? But you have to be dead to be a saint. And if you have to go with a Catholic definition of saint, you'd have to say somebody who's in heaven with God. So that's kind of the Catholic angle at what a saint really is. And so the sainthood process, we might look at it as a election to the Hall of Fame in some ways, but it's more than just honoring the people who have lived a good life. It's the idea that we have these people who have been set up as models for us so they can show us how it's done. We're all trying to get to heaven. That's the goal that we all have as Protestants or Catholics or otherwise. I think eternal life is the big goal, right? So seeing other people who have verifiably marched along that path and done it, it's good to know who they are. And also Catholics believe in intercessory miracles. And so, I think that we pray to those people who are close to God so that they might give us a little boost. I pray to all my friends, the saints in heaven, hoping somebody will pick up the phone, right? It's like, having people close to God is a good thing. So I think that knowing who's a saint and who's on the way is kind of an important thing. So there are 4 steps in the canonization process. The first is servant of God. That's when basically your friends or people who care about you or those people who have learned about your life say, this person might be a saint. Let's get the process started. And so when you're out of the gate, you're considered servant of God. That's the first step. And then when they've gathered all your data, when they've dug up everything about you, they've opened every closet, lifted up every rug, interviewed every person, looked at every interview bit or everything you've written. I don't think I have a shot at sainthood just based on the amount that I've written and the amount that I've produced, because that's a lot to go through and they're going to find something that's wrong with me. But that's the case for everybody, right? We've all got things, but these saints are people who have passed that test and they've looked over every aspect of their life and they say, this is somebody who's lived a life of heroic virtue. And then the Pope will put a stamp of approval calling you venerable at that stage. And then the process for searching for a miracle begins, and not until that point. And then if you've been shown to work a miracle through your singular intercession, then you're called blessed. A second miracle makes you a saint. So there are 4 distinct steps. And what's really difficult about it is that when it comes to the intercessory miracles, you can only pray to that one future saint, right? So theoretically, let's say you needed some help in some financial matter or other matter in your life, and you prayed for a miracle, and you prayed or for a healing of some sort. Most typically, you pray to Mother Teresa and John Paul II and Saint Therese and some future saint. If you were to get a miracle and you were to present that to the bishop or to the Vatican and say, hey, check it out, this future saint might be a legitimate saint, they'd say, congrats on your miracle, but we're going to go with John Paul II or Mother Teresa or somebody else, not your might be saint. So you got to direct your prayers and all the prayers of all your family and friends, everybody praying to you, has to go to that just one saint. So there's no confusion about who worked the miracle. So anytime they find a little bit of a miracle, it is a miracle in and of itself. So it's a tricky process.
Nice. Yeah.
Who all gets a vote?
Well, it is a process, right? So
yeah, right. So it's a great question. So when they propose somebody as a saint, they have to do all these interviews. It's called the Diocesan Phase. So you interview every person who knew the person who's alive. Wow. And in some historical cases, they interview historians and otherwise. But they interview everybody. They put it together in this book called the Positio, which is Latin word for position paper. And it's basically several hundred pages long. It's got a red cover. They bind it up with a ribbon, put it in a box, and send it to the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith. They look at it over the course of 5 to 10 years, and then they come back with the results after a vote. And if they come back with a positive verdict, then their person's named venerable, as done by Pope Francis. Then when it comes to a miracle, there's a second set of processes that go on. It's the positio super miraculo, which means the position paper relating to a miracle. So they do all the interviews again. They do all the doctor testimony. They submit all the x-rays, the MRIs, the whole deal. And they submit that to Rome and the Congregation for the Cause of Saints. Another vote goes on. And if that goes through by 2/3 majority, then the Pope can beatify you. So it's a long process.
That's incredible. I'm the only Protestant here. So I tip my hat to the process. It's such a fetid process. I have to just tip my hat and say, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that, right? Is that I think perhaps the process is so insane and so well developed. I mean, it's been going on since Prospero Lambertini, this Italian cardinal born in the 1600s. He developed all the rule book for how the church investigates miracles and canonizes people. Mm-hmm. And that's still the rule book they use today. So I think one of the beautiful parts that you're kind of alluding to is that the process is so insane and so detailed that when they do vet somebody's life, then they do find a miracle. It's hard to argue with it, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I guess that's a miracle if they've spent all that time, all that money, all that effort, all those votes, and then the Pope goes ahead and says it looks good. It's probably pretty good at that point.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to really to judge it as a fraud at that point. Anyone on the outside of the Catholic Church, when you have a process like that detailed. So.
Yeah, and some of them are extraordinary tales, and some of them are it touches the heart, right? I was listening to the one you had with Father Baker, and it was such a heartfelt one because it has to do with people, a couple who really wants, to have a child, and the doctor tells them they can't have a child, and it's, it kind of tugs at the heartstrings because you realize, how deep, that kind of devotion goes,
Yeah, that was an excellent episode all around. I think just the life of Father Baker, what he accomplished, what he did for the community there in Buffalo. And then we always put a story at the end because we want to inspire people to pray to the intercession of these future saints. And that was a good one. Definitely for all those people who are struggling to have children or see that the importance of that, to see that miracle story, so to speak, come true. And of course, that's not what's being used in his canonization cause. That's just an inspiring story. But it was a good one. And we try to do that at the end of every episode where we work in the story of a favor, a grace, a blessing, a miracle, whatever it may be, to inspire people to seek those people out for prayer.
Yeah, it was just really cool and a fun story to share with people. And then I have to say, I really am enjoying your Explore series. It's fun to see you on site as you're explaining these different events. And this is a different series that you're doing, but they actually see you at Lourdes or see you at L'Ancion. If I'm saying that correctly, because my Italian's terrible, but to see you there is just fantastic. What kind of experience is that to travel to these places and to get all these details?
Yeah, I feel very honored and blessed that EWTN is shown that vote of confidence in me to give me two shows. So I've got the one show which airs on Fridays at 4 p.m. Central Time, and the other one airs on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Central Time. So having back-to-back weekend shows is a real honor and blessing. So I'm so grateful to EWTN for that. But the Explorer episode is a Catholic travel show, basically. So I travel the world. I go to all the most famous places of miracles, and I get to go there myself, and we capture all the footage and, beautiful 4K resolution. We've got drone shots, and then we try to tell the story using recreation. So, it's really kind of amazing to see at Lanciano, for example, you were referencing that Eucharistic miracle, to actually show what a Eucharistic miracle might look like, or if you saw the Sacred Heart episode at Paray-le-Monial in France, to see that Sacred Heart of Jesus, come to life in a way that I've never seen it done like that on film before. And it's really, I feel very honored to work with the team that I do to bring those scenes to life that we read about in books. And we have these sort of mental images of what that might have looked like, but to see it on screen in such beautiful detail, I'm so honored to get to the chance to do this. So it's a lot of fun. And, getting to travel like that and see the world, you can't beat that. I'm pretty excited about that.
No, you can't. Wow.
Yeah, and it really brings it to life as we're watching it as well, and you're hearing the actual stories, especially with stories like Lancion, where they're going through and they're testing miracles medically, scientifically, and you actually get to collect that information. In fact, there was little tidbits of that as I was watching it. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So it was really cool.
Yeah, and people who know me, they know like I love data, I love science. I'm an engineer and a scientist in a former life, I suppose. So I bring some of that to bear with these episodes, and I just love to pack it full of information. So with these episodes, I'm basically putting everything I know about that given miracle. So hopefully some people will walk away with that same thing that you said, like, I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting. So, but yeah, I have a lot of fun just getting to travel the world. I just got back 2 weeks ago. I was in Ireland and England, and we filmed 6 new episodes of Explore. They'll come out next year, but it was really kind of a fun thing to get to go to these places like Knock in Ireland or Walsingham in England. These incredible places of miracles. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
So you got a science and engineer background.
Yeah, I have a mechanical engineering degree from Stanford. Some time ago. It seems like a former life in a lot of ways, but I approach miracles in the same way. I think people say, "How the heck did you go from this studying hard data and scientific?"
Be my next question.
and then you get to something that's so ethereal and boundless, like the pursuit of miracles. So, I think that I try to apply, my love of data to miracles. If you go to my website, miraclehunter.com, you'll see as many as 2,500 claims of Marian apparitions documented and detailed on the website. And I try to point things out when they're worthy of belief, and when they're not, I only relate what the Catholic Church, how they judge these things. But, I try to deal with these things with cold precision when I can, because I think that people appreciate that kind of serious approach to miracles.
Yeah, that makes it stronger.
I know I do, because I'm a believer, but I'm also an eternal skeptic. And that's where I often say Catholicism really helped save me, because I was going into a lot of directions, really trying to figure things out, and hard. Like, I was hours and hours every night. I was just really confused over all the different theologies and ideas. And, I often told my wife, after I finally came into Catholicism, I was like, it honestly saved my faith. And you do have that series on EWTN as well.
That's right. So, I think that it's EWTN's been a real blessing for me. I've got the radio show, which airs on Saturdays, actually at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern time. And, that's a lot of fun as well, because as you guys have the same experience, you get to invite who you want on the show, get to ask them all the questions you want. And, I'm all miracles all the time. That's all I talk about. I've had a few guests come onto my show. Harry Connick Jr. one time, contacted me to come on the show. And I said, wow. I said, you can come on, but you have to talk a little bit about miracles. It's the rule, you can't just come on and talk about your music or your show. So, I think that it's an important thing to keep the theme strong. And, I get to talk to some amazing people all around the world, as you guys get to as well. Just ask them what you want to ask them about miracles or otherwise. So that's been a fun thing over the years to get to do over the course of 3 radio stations. So
is he Catholic? Harry Connick?
He is, yeah, he is.
Oh, that's awesome. That's why his music is great.
Do you have any?
He's a good guy, and that was on Relevant Radio some years ago. So I've moved from Radio Maria to Relevant Radio to EWTN, but the show has stayed the same. So it's been a lot of fun to get to go on through 3 networks for that.
That's awesome. Do you have any favorite guests or favorite stories from that show?
Well, I have this guest, and unfortunately he can't go. He's retired now. He's a professor at his name is Paul DeLacy, and he's a professor of linguistics at Rutgers, and he recently retired, and I recently re-invited him back on my show. I probably invited him on a few times, too many, because he's probably tired of me, but he's an expert in glossolalia, which is the fancy Greek word for speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that was his career from a non-believer's perspective, to do the analysis on people who claim the ability to speak in tongues. So from a Protestant perspective, you might be familiar with this more than us Catholics are. Maybe the charismatics are involved with speaking in tongues more than other Catholics are. But I find it absolutely amazing. And you know, I've joked when I've talked to him before, saying, like, if I weren't doing what I'm doing right now, maybe I'd be running a study on glossolalia to prove that it's true or false. I don't know. It's pretty interesting to me.
I've never heard that term. I didn't even know there was a study of that. Wow. So what's your perspective on it?
Oh, you know, it's one of these things that I really need to dig into it more. But, you know, I think that we have this concept from the Bible of speaking in tongues and the interpretation of tongues.
Right.
And, you know, I've been to different Pentecostal services or charismatic services where you see people belting out, singing in tongues or speaking in tongues, and or using their prayer tongue, as they might say. And it's quite a thing to see, and it's a little bit disconcerting for someone when they first see it.
Sure.
I don't know if either of you guys have experienced that.
Oh,
and,
yeah, all the time.
You know,
I've seen it.
You know, it's quite a thing to behold, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. You know, I think, you know, obviously it's biblical.
Yeah.
And I know that these people who do it, they use it in prayer, so they're well-intentioned people. But to my ear, it's something very foreign, and I don't know what to make of it. So I guess my initial statement is that, yes, it's in the Bible, and yes, it could be amongst us in modern times. And I do believe there's some sort of a thing as authentically speaking in tongues. Of course, in the Bible, when it happened, the apostles were doing it. They spoke a language and everybody understood them. And the current modern version is they speak a language and nobody understands them. So it's slightly different. But I'd love to do, you know, I'd love to do a study with people who claim the ability of interpretation of tongues, you know, to see if, you know, you have two different people saying the same thing. Do they get the same translation? Or two different people with the gift of interpreting the same tongue, do they hear the same thing in a separate study? I think that would be so interesting to dig into. So what do I think of it? I got to study it a little bit more.
I know of somebody who witnessed that, and it was tongues, and there was an interpretation. Gumby, can you enlighten us?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, there was you talked about it in happening at the church before, where somebody stood up and they interpreted.
I got a few different stories, but I mean, much what he's saying, there are certain times growing up with it out of balance within the charismatic church where it was something that was contrived and recreated every week. And you felt like if it wasn't a part of your service or, you know, not part of the experience, and somehow the Holy Spirit wasn't there, and, you know, you bombed that week. But the few moments where I felt, well, it was genuine, were all of a sudden out of the blue, you know, this one lady, this elderly lady who's very conservative, very kept to herself, and she started praying, and it was during a prayer service, and all of a sudden she just started speaking, and she's Spanish, and she started speaking this other language that no one knew, and there was an orderly translation for it, and I don't remember what it was. It was meant for someone specific. Someone knew what she was saying, and that was the end of it. You know, there wasn't all this hype around it,
Right.
And so nobody could dismiss it. Nobody felt, you know, like they were trying to do something and recreate something, and so that. But I've also been told by people, you know, if you don't have the gift of speaking in tongues, and, you know, it's a salvation issue.
Well,
for me, I've always pushed the idea of speaking in tongues away. So
It's a complicated thing. I mean, it's fascinating. And like I say, I'd love to dig into it with a full study. I'd love to dig into Eucharistic miracles more with a full study. So I think that, you know, hopefully I get to do this for a while because I think there's so much to explore in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
We actually had Ray Graham on.
Yeah.
And so we talked about Eucharistic miracles. So, I don't, have you had any interactions with him yet?
Yeah, I've interviewed him on my radio show, and I know he's working on that film that's coming out. I'll be excited to see that. But yeah, no, Eucharistic miracles. I think, we talk about, what are the most convincing types of miracles, and I think, I've got this new book. Here you go. Here's the cover, Science and the Miraculous. And so in that book, I try to dig into all the miracles that the Catholic Church uses science to validate. So we're talking about things like, Marian apparitions, where they might do brain scans to check what's going on with a visionary. Or we talk about weeping statues of the Virgin Mary, where they will test the fluid coming out of the statue or x-ray the statue for an internal ductwork. Or the stigmata, where people are bearing the wounds of Christ and they look at the wounds and how they're forming, or how they're healing. We talk about all these different cases. Or incorruptible bodies of saints, and is there proof of preservation, things like that. But then we talk about Eucharistic miracles, and I think that if you had to pick one out of the list that's got the most science behind it, that can prove that something is truly happening that's inexplicable, I think Eucharistic miracles is it. And I'm really excited for Ray's movie coming out, because I think that if they do it in the right way, and I'm sure that even if they do it in the wrong way, it pique some interest. But, it's hard to argue with what's going on there. It's hard to look at that and say, wait a minute, this is something, what is going on exactly? And it's hard to just walk away and say, I'm just going to sleep at night without thinking about this ever again. So I think Eucharistic miracles are pretty important for welcoming people to the Catholic Church.
Absolutely. And I was going to bring your book up next, because I found your book to be a really interesting resource. I was going through all of the list of all of the scientists that were also fathers of the church,
Sure.
doctors of the church. I was like, this is an amazing resource.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, the line of reasoning that we always hear is that the church is anti-science. We hear that, the church, they talk about the Galileo affair, or, throughout history, how the church has been opposed to science and tried to shut down science and faith can never go hand in hand. But it turns out, things like the father of genetics is Gregor Mendel. He's a monk. Or the guy who came up with the Big Bang Theory, Georges Lemaitre, he's a Belgian priest.
Right.
I think that, it's insane when you look at the contributions of the Catholic Church, both as a patron of science, and all these people, saints and bishops and fathers of the church and doctors of the church, like you said. All these people have had some sort of their hand in science. And even though, we might say in modern times the church isn't that patron of science that it used to be, the underpinnings of science come to us today because of the Catholic Church. There's no way you can argue with that. And I just tried to include a chapter on that just to get people, clued in a little bit that the church and science can go together in a big way.
Absolutely. I have a quote here. I loved it. It was, even a cursory review of the history of science might serve as a quick reminder that the Catholic Church has led scientific discovery in many fields, and the scientific revolution was itself undertaken by people of faith, such as Kepler, Galileo, Pascal, and Newton. Groundbreaking ideas were developed by Catholics, like those of Nicholas Copernicus, with foreshadowing heliocentrism, and Jean Baptiste Lamarck, whose Lamarckism foreshadowed the theory of evolution. Whole branches of science were founded or advanced dramatically by those professed the Catholic faith, including Antoine Lavoisier, Father Nicolas Steno, Father Angelo Secchi, Gregor Mendel, and Father George Lemaitre. And that's out of the book.
So, where's the rift? Why the rift? Where did a rift come from?
That's a good question. I think honestly, part of it is propaganda. I think part of that is just simply a war against the church. The church is anti-science. There are a few pushbacks from certain people in the church that did happen, but I think that they use those very few examples against the church.
So is it a competitive thing? Like, is it a challenge to the authority of God being all creator, and in that way? Is it? Why? Why is there such a rift there within the church then?
I don't
mean,
think.
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it and why, because I can see, for me, it's just a process to figure things out.
Yeah, I think people try to create more of a separation than there actually is. Most of the main branches of science were founded by the church. I mean, a lot of them directly.
Yeah.
So it's I think a lot of it is unnecessarily pushed against the church.
We pause right there. We're going to do a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever wanted to train Muay Thai? Perhaps there's no gyms near you. Perhaps you work odd hours. Perhaps, like a few of us, you don't like germs. Whichever way it goes, you can train online with some of the best instructors from around the country, either live or in class with other students. Living Muay Thai gives you the chance to do all of this and much more. So jump into live classes and on demand right now. livingmuaythai.com.
Hey, it's Gumby here from Bible Over Brews. Are you looking to get some editing done in your podcast? Maybe you don't have the hours or time it takes to edit your content, but you still need to get it done. Maybe you need a customized track or a song for your podcast or your next project without having to worry about copyright issues. Well, look no further than soulworkmusic.com, where this footwork is done for you. I'll get that editing, post-production work done right for you, or create you that customized song that fits your project or podcast to help support your life's work. If this sounds like what you need, reach out to me at soulworkmusic.com. Again, that's soulworkmusic.com. And remember, there's nothing taboo over brew.
I think one of the challenges is that the church isn't just an organization that funds art and science and architecture. It's an organization that, frames morality for the world. And so, if you embrace the church as this great contributor to science and perhaps establish God as the source of all creation, then you have to start opening yourself up to the morality that's being suggested by the church.
Okay.
If you're not willing to do that, you better dismiss the church and say, well, they're anti-science. They have nothing to say here. And so I think that once you accept the church, you've got to start looking at the morality of it as well. So I think that's the big challenge for a lot of people today.
Yeah. And like you're saying, the Galileo affair is one they bring up all the time, which is funny because it totally neglects Copernicus, who was already teaching, a heliocentric universe 100 years before that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are things that people get twisted up about the Galileo affair, but really, when you read the chapter of my book and you see the contributions of Catholics, believing Catholics throughout the ages, I think it's pretty compelling to say that the church has had a big role in the scientific revolution. So
Yeah.
you can't argue with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I think the book is great. Not only is it fun to read through, it's refreshing on the mind to see science and faith being held hand in hand. But it's a fun one to go back to because you see these, like, I've already bookmarked a bunch of stuff in it. And so it's fun to go back and look at the notes that you were taking and say, man, look at all this right here. Look at this right here. And so I think it's a great resource, and I think it helps to reinforce faith and clear thinking.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you guys checking out the book. It's Science and the Miraculous. It's a book I've been wanting to write for a while, and actually the subtitle is How the Catholic Church Investigates the Supernatural, and that's the title of my talk that I've been giving around the country for years now. And I give maybe 20 talks a year at different parishes and conferences and otherwise, and people are fascinated with this idea that miracles do happen and that the church cares enough to try to rule them out with miracles and prove them where possible with science. So, I think that it's a fascinating topic, and most people think, again, science and faith are opposed, but they're absolutely not. And in fact, the church employs science when it comes to specifically this topic of miracles.
Yeah, I agree. And again, that just legitimizes when one does get voted as a miracle.
Right.
I really do think that. Well, you have some modern people, and I won't mention their names. Okay, maybe I will. Neil deGrasse Tyson, people like that, where I've heard an interview from him, and it was about, the role of church and faith and in science. And and I'm paraphrasing here. I mean, you can look it up on YouTube or whatever. But he said, I don't have a problem with people, being religious or having faith or spirituality. He's like, I have a problem when that stuff gets taught in school. And so that's drawing a pretty hard line.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like that helps, what we're trying to do to have this healthy balance in marriage between science and the church.
Right.
And we have such visible people like that who, for me, he's like a modern day, I don't know. I mean, he's someone everybody looks up to for science, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and again, I think whenever that argument comes up, and I use it where this book is a great resource. You can go back and you can say, well, what about this scientist? I even before I knew he was involved in the church, I mean, years ago, I used to use the term Occam's razor and use his theory before even knowing he was a man of faith.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's this stuff is documented, Yeah. So I just can't understand why at this point there's still such a schism there,
Yeah. To be kind of weird, I think it might be starting to come full circle, and I think it's because other people from other faiths are starting to push back now too. Like if you look at my son's, I was helping him with social studies all year long, right? And they were made sure that you got each branch of everybody's faith. And even though I may not agree with all those faiths, it was nice to see that, and he's in an online school, it was nice to see that they were reinforcing the idea that you can still learn faith in school.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a Christian school; it's a secular school. But it was nice to see that his school included that. Right. So it might be. Again, I'm Catholic. I support the Catholic faith. I believe it's the true faith. But it is good to see school including branches of faith in its instruction.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, when you leave it out, there's obviously a hole in the picture, right? I mean, I think that's a way to accomplish it, to say that there are many faiths that people believe, and but to acknowledge that faith is an important part of the human experience. I think that's essential. Yeah.
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 For sure.
Yeah. So, what kind of future projects can we see coming up from you?
Well, I think that, believe it or not, as I mentioned, I was just in Ireland and England filming 6 new episodes of Explore. And we're actually going to do a Miracles of St. Patrick kind of program. He's a great miracle worker, as you may or may not know, but we're doing an hour-long special on that. So I'm excited about that. But I think we have something like 12 or 18 episodes that are filmed that haven't been edited yet. So we're in the process of every month churning out new episodes of Explore. So in September, we have a brand new season coming out of 12 episodes, and then next year we'll have 12 new episodes. So it's a really an exciting thing that we filmed so many, and that the recreations are being done for those episodes. So that's an exciting thing. And then in July, we have 2 new episodes of They Might Be Saints, and one is Rhoda Wise. I don't know if you know that name, but that's a woman from Canton, Ohio, and she's a servant of God. And we were just there filming not too long ago, maybe in May, and that episode will come out in July. But when you talk about Americans with mystical, miraculous phenomena surrounding them, Rhoda Wise is the number one person in the history of the United States, if I had a vote. So, and what's really fascinating is that she had this house, which is now called the Rhoda Wise house, but Rhoda Wise had the stigmata and these visions, and people would come in the hundreds to her house, especially when they needed a healing or some sort of a cure or something in their life. But people would come to their house with an ailment, and they'd pray with Rhoda. and then they'd go home. Maybe they'd be healed. One of those people who came to her house was this woman named Rita Rizzo. And you may not know who that is, but that is the future Mother Angelica. So if it weren't for Rhoda Wise and the healing that Rita Rizzo received through her intercession or her prayers, maybe there's no Mother Angelica, and maybe there's no EWTN, and maybe I don't have a job. I don't know, but that's the least important of all these things. But of course, Mother Angelica is might be saint in our opinion as well. So she had such a huge role with EWTN and evangelization. So I think that, all these things are interconnected, and this episode is going to draw that out. So, and then we're going to be doing an episode on Father Augustus Tolton, the first Black American priest. And so that'll be following right after that one. So we've got those 2 episodes coming out in July. So pretty excited about that.
Wow, that's awesome.
That is fantastic. What is your schedule like flying around the world? I mean, that's got to, are you like always hung, do you, can you ever figure out what time zone you're in?
Well, I do have this weird habit of needing to sleep with the lights on when I stay in a new hotel, because I do travel so much that I'm completely discombobulated when I wake up what bed I'm in. So I do this weird thing of sleeping with the lights on. I know that's probably more information than people need, but yeah. But yeah, no, what we do is we try to film a lot packed into one trip. So we filmed those 6 or 7 episodes on the recent trip. When we were in Italy, I think we filmed 10 episodes. So we do this over the course of a week, believe it or not. So we really, pack a lot in, and then we bring it all home and then work with the editors to make the episode. So we try to be pretty efficient about it.
That's got to be like an 18-hour day.
They are long days, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's sun to sundown. That's extensive.
Yeah, and when you're in Ireland, you need to finish the day with a Guinness, so it's a tricky thing.
And start
That's
the day
right.
with one. Yeah.
They do show up at random times, but we got all our filming in, so that was good.
So
Awesome.
you're involved with all the way to the end, the editing and all of that. You're in the
Yeah,
mix.
I think one of the fun things of the episode, and I take great pride in this, is that when you watch an episode, watch the credit list at the end. It's very short. We have, we accomplish a lot with an incredible, talented team who's, they have their hands in multiple parts of the process, and I'm the dreamer behind the whole thing. I do the scripts in many cases, and I'll do the voiceover, and I'll pick the stories. But I think that we all wear many hats, and so we all whether it's the film guys also doing a little bit of editing or whatever it may be, or we've got people doing multiple jobs. So I think with our small crew, we're able to pull these things off, and I'm really proud of the level of quality that we've been able to achieve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how many are on that crew at any given time?
So when we film, we usually film with a crew of 4 if we're doing our international travels. And same with when we do They Might Be Saints. We've got a crew of 4. And then different people plug in who are, costume designers, or in the Rhoda Wise cause, we had a makeup artist was absolutely incredible, because Rhoda Wise had the stigmata, right? So we had to reproduce the stigmata using makeup, and it was absolutely amazing to see, it was actually somebody who was maybe a Halloween kind of haunted house makeup artist who stepped into the role and could really make those wounds appear, out of thin air, really. And so seeing them work, and everybody, pulling their weight as far as bringing something to the table, I think it works out so well just to have a tight crew, and we have more control over it when it's a smaller crew. We don't have all those levels of bureaucracy. I do this program with the History Channel called The Proof Is Out There. I'm not sure you've ever seen this show, but I appear on that show once in a while. And on that show, when they do filming, they have something like 5 or 6 people hopping on the Zoom call to just okay everything, and the quality is so good, you can't blame them for that. But they have so many levels of red tape. We were able to skirt all that and just do it more smoothly, I think.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. It does show, and that's man. So that your day alone is long. So how many hours are you putting in tonight with writing the scripts and everything?
Well, I think that, I definitely go into bursts, right? Like I have to, work really hard to get those scripts done, and then I hand it over to the editors, and the editors are just magical, the way they take the footage that we captured and some direction on my end, and then the scripts that I write and the voiceovers that I record, and they put it all together, and then I get to review it along the way and work on some of the graphics and things that go into it. So yeah, it's a process, but yeah, the script writing is definitely the long hours, and the travel with the filming are the long hours. But in between, thankfully, with these great, teams of editors, it works out really smoothly. So
Awesome.
Wow. Yeah,
It's quite a bit,
it is. It's a lot of work.
right? Oh, and I did wear my.
I mean, this is my dream job. I love doing this. I mean, whether it's doing the TV shows or the radio shows, or writing the books, or leading the pilgrimages, or giving the talks. I mean, those are all fun things, but I'm all miracles all the time. So it's like Mexican food. It's like the same stuff, just repackaged in different ways, right? So it's a lot of fun.
Speaking of Mexican, I'm wearing my original selfie shirt.
Haha, there you go. Yeah, she's my favorite. So good choice. And she made it on the cover of my book as well here. So yeah, Our Lady of Guadalupe is she's the one who I give credit to for dragging me into all this miracle stuff in the first place. So I appreciate the shirt.
I don't know if you've heard about these. I was telling Gumby earlier, I was able to get my hands on the Encyclopedia Guadalupana. It's the concise 500-year encyclopedia of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And it's
right.
yeah, it's really cool. And I'm probably going to write a short blog just to break it down, so to follow the timeline of the 500 years. So
That's amazing.
Oh,
yeah. So I take great pride in owning every book ever written on miracles, and you can see my bookcase back here, and I do not own that. So that's my next purchase.
I'll give you some links later.
Thanks.
Though I will warn you, I can only find it in Spanish.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the programs that I really take great pride in, and I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It came out on EWTN last December for the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's called this Guadalupe Mysteries, and it's a hour-long documentary where it goes into all the sort of the miraculous qualities of the tilma. And I was able to go to Mexico with my film crew, and we were able to interview Monsignor Eduardo Chavez, who is the vice postulator for Juan Diego and the absolute world expert on Guadalupe. We interviewed the bishop rector of the shrine there. We got to go in there, and we were the first American crew ever to interview him in English. So that was amazing. We interviewed the top scientists in the world who have studied the tilma and all the incredible things with the musical notes and the mountains and the eyes, the whole deal. So we interviewed all the top people, and we put it together in an hour-long special. And that was actually recognized at the Gabriel Awards this past year. And I'm really proud of that project. So check that one out if you love Our Lady of Guadalupe. We cover all the miraculous qualities all in one show. So
That's my next purchase. I just saw that later today when I was going through your materials, and I was like, I missed one.
yeah, that one we're really proud of, and I think that the recreations done with that on that one are really spectacular. There's this one shot where it's like almost a 360 shot of Our Lady on top of the mountain as Juan Diego is approaching her, and she kind of spins on the top of the mountain during the apparition. And I think it's kind of a cool effect that the editors were able to pull off. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that is my favorite apparition. So
there you go. We both on that one.
That's awesome. Gumby, you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. Knowing your background in science and in engineering, is there any confirmed miracle that the Catholic Church, legitimizes that you haven't completely bought into? Is there any one of them that it was hard for you to accept? Like, I know it's accepted within the Catholic Church, but I have some reservations. Not a full buy-in.
Sure.
Or maybe it was a journey until you accepted it.
Yeah, I think that It's a great question. Thank you. Nobody's asked me that before, so thanks for winning the prize of being original. On that one, there's a number of things, right? I mean, I think that Saint Januarius, do you guys know that one? So there's this. Check out the episode of Explore Naples, which is a fun one.
Okay.
And so Naples has like 20 or 30 patron saints. Okay, they're really big into their patron saints, but their number one patron saint is Saint Januarius, or San Gennaro in Italian. And go to Italy on September 19th if you want to see something really cool, because every single year on his feast day, you'll see something remarkable happen where the entire city of Naples gathers at the Basilica, and it's packed with people. It's packed, wall-to-wall people. We had our film crew. We couldn't get as close as we wanted to. We just filmed the crowd at some point. But on his feast day, they have a mass with the local bishop, and in the middle of mass, he stops the mass, and he walks over and he grabs this relic of Saint Januarius. And it's actually a relic of dried blood, okay? So he holds the thing up, and he holds it sideways, and it liquefies and turns into liquid. Wow. Anybody who's had a Band-Aid knows that blood dries up pretty darn quick. So this is a 3rd century bishop martyr who was killed for the faith, and they saved his blood like Catholics like to do. We save the pieces of the saint. So they saved his blood. It dried up in this ampule or glass reliquary. And every year on his feast day, turns from dried blood to liquid blood in front of everybody. Wow. And except for the years that it doesn't. So on the years that it doesn't, Naples is hit with earthquakes, with the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, financial collapse, coronavirus, whatever it is, some kind of crazy thing happens. So when he turns that vial sideways and it starts sloshing around, turning to blood, it's louder than any football game in Texas with a game-winning touchdown. The crowd cheers because that's the sign of a good year for Naples. And being there in person, go for the pizza, but stay for St. Januarius. It's and it's incredible. And what we did is, as I said, we brought our film crew there, and it was so packed with all these thousands of people, we couldn't get close enough. So we said, we're going to come back at 9 p.m. just to get back into the Basilica and film. And it was still filled with people, and the streets were still filled with people partying and celebrating that it was going to be a good year in Naples. I mean, that was a serious street party, but it's absolutely amazing. And so, maybe this is one of the top Catholic miracles of all time, but maybe it's not. They've never cracked open the ampule and tested the blood. They've been able to do some kind of spectroscopy studies, which show that it's a blood-like material in there, but they've never been able to test it as being pure blood without some kind of an additive. But nobody knows how it happens. It's never really been reproduced. So it's one of these fantastic Catholic moments. And in the book, Science and the Miraculous, you'll see a little bit about St. Januarius in the book. But it's really a sight to see. So that probably stands out as a remarkable miracle that I'd love to have tested a little bit.
Yeah, man, that's a great story.
Right? Wow. So, outside of Our Lady of Guadalupe, do you personally have a favorite miracle or event?
It's a good question. I always revert to Our Lady of Guadalupe with that question, so thanks for taking that off the table. But I think that the Shroud of Turin is the other a chiropoita image, or a not made from human hands image that we have. And of course, it's the purported burial cloth of Christ. And it has never been, validated by the church as being authentic. I think you guys may have seen the studies that have recently come out in this past year, the X-ray testing that puts the date at about 2,000 years instead of making it a medieval, carbon-14 test result. So I think that's pretty exciting.
Wow.
So I'd love to see that further studied in a peer-reviewed study. And I had one of the experts on that study on my radio show recently. And so I think that's pretty remarkable. And if they ever get around to, studying that, I think a lot of people are gonna say, wait a minute, what is this thing? Because they still don't know how it's made. So if they can do those studies and it does come back to be 2,000 years old, people can stop ignoring it. Because in 1988, when the University of Arizona and those other universities came back with those kind of difficult, test results that said, 1400s or whatever it was, everybody tuned out and said, Shroud of Turin, it's not authentic. It's just a hoax. It's a forgery. Everybody tuned out for decades. But I think if it comes back to be 2,000 years old, people have to say, okay, what is this thing? And they don't know how it was made. This is the 21st century. We know how to make everything. We know how everything is made, but they still don't know how the Shroud of Turin was made. So if it's 2,000 years old with a mysterious image that modern science cannot, duplicate, what are we dealing with there? Is this evidence of the resurrection? I think that's interesting. So I'm hopeful that comes out. And then Eucharistic miracles, as I've mentioned before, are so compelling to me. I think that's another thing that, you have these Eucharistic miracle samples from all around the world. They are all blood type AB. They are all striated heart muscle. But to my mind, what about the DNA, right? So if you had DNA tests that showed the samples in Tixla, Mexico, and also in India, and also in Lanciano in Italy, in all the 100 or so other places around the world, what if those cases all matched up to have the same exact DNA? Doesn't everybody have to become Catholic by rule at that point? I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. Sorry about that, but yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. And I think that in many of these cases, the DNA is not there, which is also interesting, or the DNA is corrupted, so they might not be able to do that. But I really think that needs to be, pretty high on the list of things that the church looks at. I don't know if you remember with when they found the bones of St. Peter, in the secret study that was done by the Vatican decades ago. And they didn't tell anybody they were looking for the bones, right? They just were excavating and hoping they'd find him. And then when they found him, they said, by the way, for the last years, we've been digging for these bones and we found him. He's really there. I really think they need to do a secret study with the Eucharistic miracles and then eventually come out and say, hey, check this out. This DNA matches. So, Pope Francis in 1996 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, when he was just Jorge Bergoglio, he had a Eucharistic miracle happen in his own diocese that he approved. So maybe he's the guy who should rubber stamp this study that's done on Eucharistic miracles.
That would be cool. I loved when that happened too, because like other accounts I've heard of, he's like, yeah, let's not call it a miracle. Just go put it in glass, let it dissolve. It's sat there for 3 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think that there have been cases like in Buffalo, New York. There was an alleged Eucharistic miracle a few years ago. They put it in water and it did dissolve, and then they couldn't do anything to test it when they wanted to. So, yeah, the Argentina miracles are pretty interesting for lasting that long. And I do have my sights on going to South America for some Explorer episodes, so maybe we'll do that one in the future.
Awesome. That's really cool.
Incredible.
Yeah, there were some fun ones like that. I did secure a guest who does science on the Shroud of Turin. So that one is coming up.
Are you able to drop the name of that guest?
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's David, I think it's Onesco or Arnisco. Okay. Yeah. But he was just at our parish, and he does presentations on the science behind the shroud, the peer-reviewed reports that came back.
Great.
And then he actually tours with examples of what happens behind the shroud. Exactly where, for example, the nails were, the reason why it's called the hand, things like that. So, the placement, the reason why you can't see the thumbs. So he goes over all that stuff, plus the pollens that are inside the Turin. Yeah. We will be.
I'll be tuning in for that episode. That sounds good. Yeah.
Awesome. I have kind of a weird off the book question for you. So, are there any like fictional stories that inspire you? Are you like a Star Trek guy or Lord of the Rings guy? Or
that's a good question. I haven't gotten that one either. So both of you get the gold star for coming up with good questions. But I have to say that I'm not a Star Trek guy, and I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy, although I've seen my fair share of those things, but I can't say I own any of the paraphernalia of those. But, I'm probably a Star Wars guy based on my age. I'm 46. So I've always, had that as my first love growing up as far as, that sort of genre. But, I guess outside of the science fiction world, I'm a big sports fan. So I'm a Chicago guy. So I like the Chicago sports team. So I think that that it's not quite a religion, of course, but it's something pretty close.
That's something that Chicago and Cleveland share in common.
That's right.
Indeed, Chicago's had way more success, though.
That's true. 100% true. Awesome.
So you guys are in Cleveland, is that right?
Yes, Cleveland proper.
So this Rhoda Wise episode that I just mentioned, she's from Canton, Ohio. So this is close to you guys, and I was just in your neck of the woods not too long ago in May. So that's great.
I'm definitely fascinated by that story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, go. Her house is still in Canton, Ohio. You can go and you can see all the different miraculous things that still exist in her house. I mean, they've got this, places of the apparitions and this holy water and the whole deal. I think that it's a pretty fascinating place, and it's a very humble home, but they still have it there. So if you're visiting the Hall of Fame, there might not be many Browns in the Hall of Fame, but you can go to the Hall of Fame there, and you can check out the Rhoda Wise house.
Sounds like it might be a Bible of a Brews trip.
Yeah, it'd be really cool, man.
Uh-huh. And we'll have to make sure we reference Mr. O'Neill and his episode when we do that.
Indeed.
Awesome. I know we can go to miraclehunter.com and we can go to EWTN. Are there any other places? I think I saw Sophia, I think, is one place where your books are available. The floor is yours. Where can we find all of your material?
I really recommend going to EWTN Religious Catalog, which is EWTNRC.com. I've got a whole page for Miracle Hunter on there, which is great. It's got all my books, all my Explore episodes, all the They Might Be Saints and They Might Be Saints books. All my books are on there as well. So that's kind of the best place to find everything there. And there's quite a few things. So I encourage people to check out EWTN Religious Catalog for my stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know that you have a very tight schedule, and I know you're giving us an hour. We really appreciate that, and all the work you're doing, the phenomenal shows and the books. So hats off. Thank you so much for all the work.
We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was great. And I appreciate the beers. I'll be enjoying those. And hopefully you guys can check out my book, Science and the Miraculous, next time you get a chance. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. We'll post links for you right in this episode.
Thank you. All right. See you guys.
All right, take it easy.
Thank you.